In my last video, I talked about getting the layout project restarted, and in this video, I'm making that happen. When I built this room, I built it as a sunroom, and as such, it has a lot of window area. It has 3 4-foot by 8-foot windows and 1 3-foot by 4-foot window, and then of course the door. And I gotta fill those windows up to improve the thermal efficiency of the room, because in an Arizona summer it gets hot. And here you can see on the 2 windows on the long wall where I filled the back of the windows with 4 inches of insulation board. I'm using the same process for these 2 windows. I can only get the insulation in 2-inch thick sheets, so I have to use 2 sheets per window, and of course they have to be cut to fit. And once the 2 sheets are stacked, I'll have 4 inches of insulation, which will help greatly keeping the room cool during the summer. I bought a can of spray texture, and I textured the areas that would be visible, and in the center, that area is going to be covered by the backdrop, so you're not going to see it. So I saw no point in wasting the texture on that area. And I did the same thing with the large 4x8 sheet. I just textured the areas that would be visible. The piece of insulation that will face the outside, so that if you're outside the sunroom and you're looking at the window, you will see this tan blank in the window. The large 4x8 windows have sunscreens on the outside, so you won't be able to see the paint. But the small window that's under the covered patio, you're going to be able to see the brown paint when looking at the window. The sheet facing the inside of the room that has the texture, I painted with semi-gloss white that would match the walls in the room. That way it won't be so readily apparent that the windows have been filled. And just like when spraying the texture, when I painted the insulation sheet that would face the inside of the room, I only painted the areas with multiple coats that are going to be visible. Again, I saw no need to waste paint on an area that's not going to be seen. Okay, we got the insulation cut and painted for the windows, and now it's time to start cutting some wood. I got up really early, got all set up. I'm out there just waiting till it's 7 o'clock, so I figured that's the trigger point where I can get going and not totally upset the neighbors. The day I started, it was going to be 108 degrees, so I wanted to get an early start before it got hot. My miter saw I've probably had for 15 years. It's been a good tool. I've used it a lot. And my little bandsaw there, I picked that up maybe 5 years ago. And it's great for occasional use, but it's not very heavy duty. The vertical legs have to be cut to clear the baseboards. So I use this tool to get the profile of a baseboard, and then I trace that onto the wood I'm using, which are 2x3s, using for legs. The first step is to cut my legs to length, and they're all 6 feet long. And you might be wondering, why am I using a square to mark my wood when I'm using a miter saw? Well, the line helps me line up the saw blade on the wood so I get a more precise cut. And now we're using the gauge where we took the baseboard profile and we're going to trace it onto the leg. My little bandsaw worked pretty hard to cut through the thick part of the 2x3s. It's a good thing there was only 7. And now I have to cut the slots for the 1x3s that run horizontal. And now I got a stack of legs that are ready to use. There's only 6 shown. I ended up having to cut one more. I'm putting a cover over the top of the railroad to give it like a shadow box effect. And in order to do that, I have to make some L girders for the top. And I'm using 1x3s here. I glue them together with tight bond and then come back and screw them. First I apply glue to the wood and then clamp the pieces in place. And once that's done, I can go ahead and drill my pilot holes and then countersink the holes. You have to drill pilot holes and the holes have to be countersunk, otherwise you'll split a 1x. Once the glue sets up, these pieces are very rigid and strong. Now, I'm not using premium wood for this part of the project. Now, in this part of the benchwork, I'm using just furring strip quality wood. Now, it has to be straight to a point, but it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Once we start building our modules, then we're going to use premium wood that's very straight and few knots. I'm going to paint the bottom of the legs, lower half of the legs, with semi-gloss white paint because they're going to be visible. The benchwork that's already built, I plan to have a drape covering the wood, so I didn't worry about painting it, but in hindsight, I wish I would have painted it while I was putting it together. Two coats of paint, it covered pretty well, and the legs are ready to be installed. Where the two legs are side by side are two different sections. To the right of the leg is one section, to the left of the other leg is another section. I'm building this benchwork so it can all be disassembled. If I ever move in the future, I want to be able to take this all apart and take it with me because I'm 64 years old and this is kind of an involved project and I don't want to have to do it again. And here we have the L girder on top and the two 1x3s across the middle. And the L girder on top is part of the top. I'm going to call it a valance because I don't have any other name for it. The upper 1x3 going horizontally will be the lower mounting for the backdrop, the masonite. And the lower 1x3 going across the center will be the mounting strip for the modules. These 2x3s I cut and routed, and they'll go between the L girder on top and the upper 1x3 going horizontal. And I'll try to put these on 16 inches on center, although that may vary depending on where they're at. But this will give the backdrop masonite something to screw onto, and it should keep it from warping. I have all those vertical pieces in place. They're all glued and screwed. And you can see that the masonite's going to screw to each one of those vertical pieces, and that should keep the masonite from getting wavy. Well, I'm getting ready to cut the masonite for the backdrop. My old Black & Decker saw. I've had that saw for at least 30 years. I've had it for so long, I don't remember ever having anything else. Well, here they are. They're cut 21 inches wide, and those are my backdrops. And I have the first piece of masonite in place, and you can see the masonite is cut right to that seam where the two legs join. So when that's all put together, that can be pulled out as one piece. Well, I'm at a stopping point here. I'm waiting on a package, and I can't fill the small window with the insulation until I get this package. So once that's done, I get the window filled, I'll continue on with the construction.